The reason they call her a community cake is going to shock you. She wasn't like the other girls. Ijeoma was stunning. Her light skin gleamed under the sun, and her curves makes head turn wherever she went. Her eyes sparkled like the stars, and her laugh was as sweet as the sound of birds in the morning. Everyone from young men to old men admire her beauty. The way she walked with grace and confidence captures the hearts of every man in the village. Even the married men would steal glances whenever she passes by. Ijeoma loved the attention. She had many admirers, and she didn't mind having them all. She was not like the other girls who only stayed with one man. Ijeoma was free. She did what made her happy. It didn't matter if the man was young, if the man was old, single, or married. Ijeoma welcomed them all with open arms. The villagers began to talk about her. People started calling her names, saying she was the community cake because, like cake at a party, everyone wanted a taste of her. But Ijeoma didn't care what they say. She laughed up their whispers and gossips. She lived her life as she pleases. One hot afternoon, Ijeoma went to the marketplace to buy some fresh fruit. As she walked past the market stall, the women who were selling fish and vegetables whispered to each other, pointing at her. "Look, there goes Ijeoma," said Adaku, one of the market women. "I hear she was with Chike last night, a man that is old enough to be a father." Ngozi, another woman, she shook her head in disgust. "It is shameful. She has no respect for herself." "And what about poor Nkem, Chike's wife? I heard she cried all night." Ijeoma overheard their gossip, but she kept walking, her head held high. She approached a fruit stall where Nnenka, one of the oldest and most respected women in the village, was selling oranges. "Ijeoma," Nnenka called out loudly, catching the attention of everyone in the marketplace. "Do you have no shame? Must you chase after every man in this village, both young and old?" Ijeoma smiled sweetly and picked up an orange. "Nnenka, if your husband stays at home, maybe you wouldn't have to worry about me," she replied her boldly. The women gasped. How could she say such a thing? Nnenka's face turned red with anger. "You think you are so clever," she spat. "But don't worry, when I have your time, you would know." But Ijeoma didn't mind. She welcomed all the men with warm smile and charm that made every man feel special. The villagers began to whisper about her. They point fingers at her wherever she goes. It seems every man in Umueke wanted a taste of her sweetness. While the men adore her, the women were not so kind. At first, the whispers were soft. Murmurs passed between women as they gathered by the river or sold their wares in the market. "Did you hear about Ijeoma? They said she has been seen with Nnamdi, even though he is newly married." Adaku whispered to her friend Ngozi, their eyes narrowing in disgust. "Yes, and last week she was with Obi. His poor wife is heartbroken," Ngozi replied, shaking her head. But Ijeoma didn't care about the whispers. She lived her life as she pleased. When the women confronted her, accusing her of ruining their marriages, Ijeoma only laughed. "If your husbands are with me, it is because they want to be. I don't force anyone," she would say with a playful smile. This boldness infuriated the women even more. Soon, Ijeoma became the subject of daily gossip. The wives of Umueke began to fear her, as one by one, their husbands were drawn to her beauty. As Ijeoma passed by, Nnenka stood tall and blocked her path. "Ijeoma, you will not rest until you have destroyed every home in this village. First, you took my brother, then my neighbor's husband, and now I hear you have been seen with my own husband, Obina. What would you have to say for yourself?" Everyone stopped to listen. Ijeoma looked at Nnenka and smiled. "Mrs. Nnenka," she said softly, "if Obina chooses to come to me, how is that my fault? Perhaps you should ask him why he no longer stays at home." The crowd gasped. Nnenka's face turned red with anger. She raised her hand as if she was to strike Ijeoma, but Ijeoma stepped back calmly. "You can be angry, Nneka, but I am not the one who is chasing your husband. Maybe it is time you look at your own home." With that, Ijeoma walked away, leaving Nneka fuming. The market was bustling with gossip as the villagers whispered about the confrontation. As days turned into weeks, the situation grew worse. More men fell for Ijeoma's beauty and her endowed body, and the women's jealousy deepened. The gossip spread like wildfire, and soon every woman in the village was either whispering about Ijeoma or warning their husband to stay away from her. Some women even started hiding their husbands when Ijeoma was near, fearing that her charm would be too strong for them to resist. But Ijeoma didn't mind. She continued to live her life freely, enjoying the attention she received from men. The more they admired her, the more she felt in control. No one could tell her how to live. Her parents had given up controlling their daughter long ago. They were simple farmers, and although they loved Ijeoma dearly, they were embarrassed by the constant complaints from women in the village. One night, under the light of a full moon, the women gathered under a tree. Nneka, Adaku, and Ngozi stood at the center, leading the meeting. The air was thick with tension as they whispered about their plan. "This is the only way," Nneka said, her voice low but firm. "We have tried talking to her. We have warned our husbands, but nothing works. Ijeoma must be stopped." "But how?" Adaku asked. "What can we do that will make her leave our husbands alone?" "There is only one person who can help us now," Nneka said, her eyes narrowing. "We must visit Mama Ekene." Mama Ekene was a mysterious old woman who lived in the deep forest. She was known for her strange powers, and many people feared her. Desperate times called for desperate measures, and the women were willing to do whatever it took to stop Ijeoma. If you are yet to subscribe to my channel, please hit the subscribe button now and like this video. Thank you. The next morning, before the village awoke, Nneka, Adaku, and Ngozi made their way through the forest to visit Mama Ekene's hut. When they arrived at the hut, Mama Ekene was sitting outside stirring a pot of herbs. "What brings you here so early?" Mama Ekene asked. "Mama, we need your help," Nneka said. "There is a girl in our village called Ijeoma who is destroying our homes. Our husbands are drawn to her like moth to a flame. We have tried everything, but nothing works. We need you to stop her." Mama Ekene looked at them. "This girl you speak of, she is not like others," she said slowly. "There is something deeper at play here. But if you wish to stop her, I will give you something you need." The women listened carefully as Mama Ekene handed them a small clay pot filled with a strange dark substance. "Take this and bury it at the place where Ijeoma often bathed. Once you do this, her beauty will fade, and she will carry a smell so terrible that no man will come near her again." The women left Mama Ekene's hut, their hearts pounding with excitement and fear. They knew what they had to do. Dear viewers, do you think this is going to solve their problems? Let's continue watching. That night, they made their way to the riverbank where Ijeoma often bathed. The moon shone brightly as they dug a small hole and buried the clay pot in the soil. When they were finished, they stood in silence, hoping that their plan would work. The next morning, something strange began to happen. Ijeoma woke up feeling different. She noticed a foul smell in the air, but she couldn't figure out where it was coming from. No matter how many times she bathed, the smell clung to her like a shadow. At first, Ijeoma tried to ignore it, but as she walked through the village, she noticed people turning away from her. The men who used to admire her now kept their distance. The young boys who once followed her with wide eyes now ran away from her, holding their noses. Ijeoma was confused. She thought it was just a passing problem. Maybe the water at the river had something to do with it. But no matter how much she scrubbed and used perfumes, the foul smell lingered. It followed her everywhere like an invisible curse. Day by day, the villagers' whisper grew louder, turning into laughter and mocking. The once admired beauty of Umueke was now a joke. Ijeoma, the community cake, had spoiled. The children would tease as she passes by. Even the men who used to chase after her began to avoid her. They held their noses and looked away. Ijeoma, what is this smell? He asked one day. I don't know, she said softly, her voice breaking. I don't know what is happening to me. Eze shook his head and walked away, leaving Ijeoma standing alone in the middle of the market. Feeling more humiliated than ever, the women who once envied her beauty now mocked her openly. Where are all your admirers now, Ijeoma? Nneka said with a wicked smile. No one wants to near you anymore, not even the flies. The other women laughed, their voice sharp and cruel. Ijeoma's heart ached. She had never felt so alone in her life. All the attention, the admiration, and the power she once held over the men in the village was gone. She was no longer the center of attention. She had become an outcast. As the day passes, Ijeoma grew more desperate. The smell grew worse, and so did the insults. No one would talk to her anymore, not even the men who used to be her closest companion. She could barely stand in the village. People covered their noses whenever she walked by. The children ran away from her as if she was a monster. Ijeoma felt trapped. There was nowhere she could go where people won't mock her or avoid her. One evening, after another painful day of being laughed at and shunned, she decided she couldn't take it anymore. She needed to escape the nightmare her life had become. She packed a small bag and wandered into the deep forest, far from the village, where no one could find her. As she walked, tears streamed down her face and her heart felt heavy with sadness. She reached a quiet clearing and collapsed under a large tree, her body trembling with despair. She thought about ending her life, hoping that death would bring her peace from the pain she had suffered. I can't live like this anymore, she sobbed. Nobody wants me. Everyone hates me. I would rather be dead than live like this. Just as she was about to give up, she heard a voice. My child, why do you cry? Ijeoma looked up to see an old woman standing before her. The woman had a kind face. Who are you? Ijeoma asked, wiping her tears. I am the guardian of these woods, the woman said. I have watched over you for a long time, Ijeoma. Ijeoma looked at the old woman in confusion. You know me? The old woman smiled gently. I know all the children of this land. I have seen your beauty, your pain, and now your sorrow. Tell me, why are you so sad? Ijeoma's heart felt heavy as she poured out her story to Mama Ijeoma. She told her everything. No matter what I do, I can't get rid of the smell, she said, her voice trembling. I don't understand why this is happening to me. Mama Ijeoma nodded slowly, her eyes filled with understanding. Your suffering, my dear child, is the result of something much deeper than jealousy or gossip. This curse was placed on you, but not just by the village women. There is something far more ancient at play. Ijeoma frowned. What do you mean? The old woman sat beside her, her voice lowering to whisper. Many years ago, when your mother prayed for a child, she made a deal with a powerful deity. She wanted a child so badly that she offered anything in return for the blessing. The deity agreed to give her a daughter, but with a condition. You were blessed with beauty beyond compare, but in exchange, men will be drawn to you uncontrollably. You see, Ijeoma, your beauty was a gift, but it came with a cost. This is why you could never resist their attention, and why they could never resist you. Ijeoma's eyes widened in shock. So, this was not my fault? Mama Ijeoma shook her head. No, my dear. You were born under a charm that made men desire you. But the village women, in their jealousy, they have cursed you further. They placed the curse of the smell upon you, hoping it would drive you away. Old one, please, can the curse be broken? She asked, her voice filled with hope. The old woman smiled. Yes, the curse can be broken, but it will require something from you. You must seek forgiveness, not just from those you have hurt, but from yourself. Only then the curse will be lifted. Ijeoma nodded. I will do anything to be free from this. The old woman stood up and beckoned Ijeoma to follow her. They walked deeper into the forest until they reached a small clear stream. The water sparkled under the moonlight. Bathe in this stream, Mama Ijeoma said softly. As you wash yourself, let go of the pain, the anger, and the hurt that has burdened your heart. Forgive yourself and you will be free. Ijeoma stepped into the cool water and began to wash herself. As the water flowed over her, she felt a weight lifted from her shoulder. The smell began to fade. She closed her eyes and whispered, I forgive myself. When she opened her eyes, the terrible smell was gone, and her heart felt free. Ijeoma turned to Mama Ijeoma, tears of gratitude in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. Mama Ijeoma smiled. Your journey is not over, Ijeoma. You must return to the village and make peace with those who cursed you. Only then you will be truly free. Ijeoma nodded, understanding what she had to do. With a heart full of courage, she began her way back into Umueke. When she arrived, the villagers were shocked. She looked as beautiful as ever, but there was something different about her, something more peaceful and graceful. The women who had cursed her felt ashamed. They had expected her to remain an outcast, but here she was, standing before them, renewed and stronger than before. From that day on, Ijeoma lived a quiet, humble life. She no longer sought the attention of men, and she became a symbol of forgiveness and strength in the village of Umueke. The women who once envied her now look up to her, and the village was filled with peace once more. And so, the girl who was once called the community cake became a lesson to all about the power of forgiveness and the strength of letting go of jealousy.